Hi everyone, my name is Desiree. I am an author, speaker, and content creator for Speak 91 LLC. Speak 91 is all about bringing hope, healing, and freedom to people through writing and other means. I am really excited about this Reclaiming the Arts Summit that we are doing. Seriously, big cry of my heart because God created the arts. He created all aspects of it, be it writing, visual arts, painting, drawing, dancing, all of it. He created it. And I am very excited about this summit that we're going to have about bringing all those back to His glory. Today, I want to talk specifically about writing. How writing, for me, writing is something that I have always done ever since I was a kid. It's something that I've always been good at and always enjoyed. And if I'm being completely honest, writing is not something that I've always appreciated. And what I mean by that is, while it is a talent that I've had and a skill that I've honed, and while I've always gotten compliments on my writing and like felt really good about it. It's not something I've valued because most people will be like, "Oh, you write? Okay, so what's your real job? Like, what do you really do to make money and all of that? You know, like writing is just a hobby. You know, you probably shouldn't focus on it." That's what the world told me for many years. And one thing that I have come to learn in the last several months is that writing is not a hobby. Writing is a calling. And with the artistic gifts that God has given us, He has given us those gifts for a reason to bring about His purpose and His glory. Writing, especially, is something that is very close to His heart. Like, just just look at the Bible, for instance. Like 66 books, thousands of chapters and verses in this work, and this beautiful work of art. Goodness, like you can read it and get instruction, you can get lessons to live by, you can get, freedom and breakthrough from reading this book. And there are also like so many different genres within this beautiful work. There is action, there is heroism, there's villainy, there is stuff we don't teach about in Sunday school, there is genocide and murder, there is mystery because God is a mystery to unfold. And these pages are a great key to unlocking that mystery. There are so many genres in here, and I think about writing, and I think about the different genres that people write in. Like me, I primarily write books. Like I am starting to do a bit of songwriting here and there, and I'm really excited to continue to grow in it. But writing spans so many different aspects beyond books. Writing is with poetry, and there is poetry in the Bible. Like read through all the Psalms, all the beautiful Psalms that David wrote, just expressing his heart to God, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like so many beautiful things written in Psalms, written through poetry. There is our psalms that are sung and turned into worship songs, like all the worship songs that we hear on the radio and in church on a Sunday morning all come from scripture. So many different aspects of writing that God loves, and so many that honestly as Christians we probably look at like, oh yeah, I want to be a writer, so we immediately think, oh, I have to write a devotional, like his Princess Bride. Beautiful devotional, I love this. It is a series of letters written from the point of view of God to His bride, and response letters written from the point of view of the bride back to God. Absolutely beautiful. And oftentimes we can think, okay, so if I'm a Christian, then when I want to write, it has to be, something that's, about the Bible, and something that is, a devotional, and something that's going to be instructional. And I certainly did that with the second book that I wrote, Winning the Silent Battle, Exposing 8 Lies Hindering Your Mental Health. It's a book about mental health and faith, and talking about various aspects of psychology and pop culture references, but also biblical basis and scripture of overcoming various mental health issues. But writing can not only like be instructional with that, but it can also be fun. It can be fun. Like think of all the comics that creators have written, like Stan Lee, all the characters that have been written with that. Think of romance novels. Yes, there is romance in the Bible, and there are certain aspects of romance novels. It's like, okay, maybe not go that far, but love stories are absolutely like so much of God's heart. And sometimes people want to write love stories, and then they think, well, but I should be a Christian writer. And Christian writer just means like you acknowledge that your gift is from the Lord, and you write to bring Him honor and bring Him glory. And in the terms of romance, can I just say there's a lot of distortions, and having someone who stand up like full of the Holy Spirit saying, hey, I'm going to write a romance novel that is good and wholesome. Like, yes, more of that. If that is like what is on your heart, all the power to you. I encourage you, I support you. Not necessarily my thing for writing, but it is something that I support other people writing in. And let's be honest, like, our society loves love and loves the idea of love. Like, how many love songs are on the radio that you hear played every single day? How many love stories do you see played out in movies? Like, Hallmark, for example. I know everyone's heavy sigh, eye roll, because Hallmark, they replay like the same plot every three movies. You know what's going to happen within 5 minutes of the movie, yet people still watch anyway. Why? Because it's a feel good romance, and people like to feel good, and people like happy endings, and they like that. At the same time, some people really enjoy like war stories and war movies. I have friends that is like their favorite genre, partially because it's real to them because they've actually lived in, partially because it's like, hey, it's educational. I learned something in various aspects of that. So it's all important and all valuable to God is what I'm getting at here. So if you are someone who, you want to write, but you don't necessarily feel led to write a devotional, that's okay. That is okay. God can still use it for his glory and for his purposes, and don't shy away from what he has placed in you to release and to write. And as I mentioned before, writing can be in various different genres. I'm going to primarily talk about book writing because that's what my strongest suit is there. And I want to talk to you today about elements that make up a good story. So you can get your pads of paper out, your pens out if you don't already have them. And I also wanted to share just a few like tips and tricks at the end here for you as well. So I'm going to bring some examples of books that really resonated with me for one reason or another, whether it's concepts or ideas or, just like, or character development, various things that stuck out with me through various years. And the one thing that I will say, a mark of a good book, there are books that I read when I was in middle school that I haven't reread as an adult, not because they were bad books. I found other books and I was like, yes, all the books. But I still remember details from those books. That is when you know you've written something good, when, 10 years later, or the reader can still recall, yeah, I remember that scene in this one book or this character. Mind blowing. Anyway, so first book that I want to talk about here. Oh, just kidding. I don't actually have it here. So the first book that I want to talk about is Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. So that is a book that I read when I was in middle school. And if you haven't read it, I would suggest adding it to your docket. The main character is Cassie. She is a preteen, teenage age, and she is growing up in a time when there is still a lot of segregation. And seeing her point of view when she's growing up, and she encounters this girl named Norma Jean, and the two of them end up like having it out here and there. And I remember distinctly like a scene from that book, actually a couple scenes, and one of them is a fight that she ends up having with Norma Jean because, well, Cassie's pride was hurt. Cassie was instructed to, go stand in the middle of the street because she accidentally bumped into Norma because, well, we're human beings. We accidentally bump into people and we make mistakes. It happens. But Norma was getting all high and mighty, like, no, you are going to go walking in the street because I'm better than you, and that is how she was treated. And Cassie was just like distraught and destroyed. So she came up with this plot to get back at Norma Jean. And I, years later, like still remember that. I'm not someone who's like, yeah, someone does you wrong, beat them up. That is not my message at all in sharing this. But I remember, because that spoke to me something about Cassie's character, was that she was very strong and also very stubborn. Because Cassie's actions, honestly, she could have gotten in so much trouble for what she did. Not just because, hey, you know, kids, you shouldn't be fighting. Okay, now you're going to get suspended from school because you were fighting. But because of the segregation that was going on in that time period, her life very much could have been in danger from these actions. But yet she was very prideful and very strong in who she was and very strong in her convictions that she was willing to take that risk. And like years later, I still think about it, it's like, wow, that is someone who was very like headstrong, very passionate, very strong. Like I think about her and I'm wondering like, okay, so if she was a real person, like where would she be now? Like 10 years later, like how would she be, you know, operating and orienting herself in society now? And it's amazing to think about that impact. When the person was writing this book, they're probably thinking, okay, I'm going to educate, you know, the reader on the effects of segregation, and maybe that will buy some sympathy. Maybe they'll start to change their mindset, change their ways. They can put themselves in other people's shoes. They can really like actually understand this. Where I'm here, sitting here thinking like, yes, I understand the impact of all that, but I'm also wondering like, okay, how are these characters' lives like after that? Because that's, I don't know, to me that communicates good writing when you have a character who has aspects that are so strong that years later, like people can still imagine, you know, what those characters are doing. A character that is the opposite of that, sorry, Twilight fans, I gotta do it. Bella. So I read Twilight, I read New Moon, and then I got recaps of the last couple because I couldn't push past it. Sorry, Stephanie Meyer. You're doing pretty well for yourself, so my opinion of your book is probably not going to matter too much to you. But anyway, Bella, when you look at the character of Bella, there is not much like substance to her character. Like, what do you know about Bella? She loves Edward. She wants to be a vampire. Those are the only two things you know about her. And then at the end of the book, spoiler alert, she has a kid who's half human, half vampire because she managed to do that. So many questions, but moving on. That is what you know about Bella. I don't wonder, after how many years of reading Twilight, I read that in high school, so I was 17, 13 years ago. I don't look back and wonder, I wonder what Bella's doing now. I wonder how she and Edward are going on. I'm kind of just like, okay, I've moved on with my life. So what makes a compelling character? What makes a strong character? One, a character has their own interests, their own personality, their own likes and dislikes, their own passions, their own hobbies. Like when you are creating a character, you are creating someone that could actually exist in real life in some aspect. Obviously, if you're writing a fantasy novel, there's a little bit more liberty that you can take there. But, you know, what are some things that set your character off? What are some things that make them angry? What are some things that make them sad? What are some things that make them happy and bring them joy? What are some things that are a challenge for them? Are things that maybe they can't do as easily? And what are some things that they can do easy peasy, piece of cake? Are they someone who is well-rounded, or are they someone who is too perfect? In Disney's Encanto, yes, I realize this is a cinema reference, but every piece of cinema started as a written work, as a manuscript. So I'm going to use that as my excuse for bringing in cinema here. In Disney's Encanto, you see some of the characters, Isabella, for example, like she's seen as the perfect child, the golden child, and you have Mirabelle, who's a little clumsy, but like most people, when they're like looking at the two, like, okay, which one do I tend to like gravitate towards or tend to focus in on? You're focusing in on Mirabelle. You're focusing in on the one who's, you know, a little clumsy, a little offbeat, but someone who is very passionate about her family, very compassionate, who seeks to be useful, to be of service, to be helpful, who, you know, wants to bring joy to other people. And when she sees Antonio and Antonio's, you know, scared, like she's there to comfort him. even though Antonio's about to go through an experience that brought her pain, she's over here being a cheerleader for him. Like, everything's going to be okay. You're going to be awesome. You're going to be great. A lot of people are just like, Mirabelle's great. She's awesome. And people look at Isabella and you're just like, ah. And then as the story continues and things start to unravel, you realize, oh, snap, Isabella. I didn't know all that. And you start to sympathize more with her, and you start to see her more, and you're just like, oh, there's a real person in there. Okay, I take back everything I said. All right, I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna level with you. Okay. And those are things that make someone uncompelling characters when they're not put in front of you as like, oh, they're just this perfect thing that can do no wrong. But actually like real and relatable. Does that make sense? Or am I tracking with you here? But in the comments, like, yes, this makes sense. No, this doesn't make sense. Just let me know how you're feeling there. So those are some things that make for a compelling character, is that what's their drive? What's their motivation? Why is that their drive and their motivation? Like, at the end of the day, like, is this someone who has, a complex character? Or is this someone who's like really vanilla? Like, okay, if I weren't creating this story and I were just reading this story, would I still think about this character or care about this, month from now? The answer is no. Dig a little deeper, work a little more. Other aspects that make for a good story. Conflict. So, conflict in a story, when the protagonist is going and they are trying to achieve something, whether it is, trying to become, in the top 10% of their grade so they can get a scholarship to a school, or insert whatever type of conflict you want to insert here. What makes the conflict conflict? Is it something that is like easily fixed with, flip of a switch, or is it something that is like actually going to be a genuine struggle and uphill battle? And how are you going to develop that? When I was a kid, I loved watching Scooby-Doo. I loved watching Scooby-Doo so much, and they had like Scooby-Doo Kids on as well. And something that always like kind of bugged me was sometimes when the kids would bust the villain, there's like this guy dressed up in a costume and he's wreaking havoc on a museum, and the kids catch him. It's like, oh, it's not a monster, it's Mr. Smithers. And the guy's sitting there and everyone's like, why did you do it? Why have you been terrorizing everyone here? He's like, I've worked here for 20 years and never once did he give me a raise. Like, yeah, that's a conflict because, you got to put food on the table and provide for your family. I get that. But then one of the characters, it was usually like Daphne or Velma, would be like, why don't you just find a new job? They're like, oh, I never thought of that. Really? Really? Like, you didn't think, oh, there's this conflict, there's this easy solution. So I could rant about that for a long time here. There is one movie that comes to mind, and is called She's the Man. Is with Amanda Bynes and Channing Tatum. If you have not watched it, dude, watch it. It is a really fun movie, and the conflict that Viola's character is facing is her school just cut their girls' soccer team, and soccer is her life. It is her passion. It is her lifeblood. Like, it's something that she's very good at. Her mom really doesn't understand, like, why do you just want to kick a muddy ball around? Can't you be my debutante? Can't you be my beautiful little princess? And she's like, no. And she initially tries out for the boys team at her school, and the coach there is like, absolutely not. You can't, because you're a girl, and I make the rules go away. So what Viola does is she hatches a scheme with some friends to go to another school. She posed as a guy to get onto their soccer team, to prove that she is as good as the guys and deserves to be on a co-ed team. That is her goal. That is her mission. It's like, okay, that's a good conflict there. You no longer have a soccer team, and you want to prove that you are worth being on a co-ed team when you tried to make that happen and people railroaded you and said no. I'm not going to give away the ending. I'm just going to tell you to go and watch this movie because it is really funny. It is funny. It is endearing. It is somewhat chaotic, and it just works, and it's really entertaining. So that is your homework, is to go watch this movie. But that is another element to a good story. Another element, and I talked about this a bit in the last talk that I did about writing, is when you are describing scenes, when you are describing characters, when you're describing scenarios, to show, not tell. So when you are showing what is going on within a story, you are painting a picture so that the audience feels like they are there with you. You are painting a picture so that, say you're talking about a day at the beach, your audience member should feel like they are at the beach. They should feel sand in their toes and in their fingers. They should feel the sun like on their face and hear the waves from the way that you describe it in your book. If you just say, yeah, Charity went to the beach with her sister Violet, and they sat on the beach and watched the sunset, the audience is like, okay, cool, that's what they did. Versus if you say, Charity went with her younger sister Violet to the beach. They grabbed their pink beach towels and they laid them out. They wore their swimsuits, their two-piece swimsuits, so they could get a tan. They laid out in the sun, and the sun radiated on their skin so much so that Charity was sure that she would be burned because she literally felt like she was cooking because she forgot to wear sunscreen. The sound of the waves crashing was very peaceful, very calming, and even though the waves were crashing, she felt a lot of peace and she felt serene. Something like that, you're actually like starting to visualize it now versus like, yep, okay, they're at the beach. Does that make sense? Are you picking this up so far? So those are a few elements to writing a good story, and there are a lot more that I'm not going to have time to touch on today. But those are some elements to get the wheels turning for you, for those of you who want to write a good story there. And those elements, those can be brought up in both fiction and nonfiction. They're not like strictly exclusive to fiction writing. However, with the nonfiction writing, you are slightly limited if you are, like, for example, if you are writing a memoir and you want to describe a character to someone, that character being an actual person that the story is about or includes, like actually telling them and sharing them in such a way where there is like actual like character development. Someone can actually like see, okay, I can understand who this main person is, or who this antagonist is, the person opposing the main person. Hopefully you're still tracking with me here. I know I'm going a little bit over time, and I do apologize for that, but I wanted to talk about a few things just in general with writing to help you out here. So with writing, there's another movie that I watched, and one of the characters is like, yeah, I'm going to take time off to write my novel. And his best friend is like, you're writing a novel? And immediately Alex is like, I've told you this for many, many years. And his friend is like, yeah, everyone says they're going to write a novel, but no one ever actually does it. How true is that? Like, show of hands, how many of you have said, hey, I'm going to write a series of poems or a song or a book, and you said that 3 years ago and you haven't even started yet? I'm not gonna lie to you, I was in that very same place. My first book, Kaleidoscope, it's a fiction novel about human trafficking. I was like, hey, I'm going to write a book. And then I literally went for like 6 months where I just like didn't write or do anything because I wasn't very disciplined with my time. And like it took the Lord had to nudge me to write by giving a prophetic word to someone else about my writing. Um, so that was a kick in the butt for me. I was like, okay, I hear you, Lord. I'm going to actually like steward this and not just be like, oh, I think I might write someday. Uh, so one thing to encourage you if you are like struggling with writing is to look at your week and set aside time in your week to write, whether you are setting aside 15 minutes to write or a half hour to write. Just set that time aside and know that Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take some time and it's going to take probably various different like edits and versions, and that's okay. Be patient with yourself, but also celebrate every single milestone. Like if you took a week and you said, okay, I'm going to write for 15 minutes every day this week, and by the end of the week you wrote 15 minutes every day for that week, celebrate. Like do a little dance around your home. Like do something to uplift yourself and encourage yourself. Treat yourself to an extra latte or something like that. Like take time to celebrate the small wins, because if you aren't taking time to celebrate the small wins, when you get to the big win, you'll kind of just be like, finally, I'm done. And even if you're celebrating, like you still feel that way, but at the same time, like as opposed to being like, yes, I've accomplished this is awesome, you're more just looking like, I'm so exhausted. And writing is not meant to be something that exhausts you. It's meant to be something that is fun and encouraging and uplifting. And yes, there are moments when you're like, I've been writing, now I have writer's block. Crap, why do I have writer's block? Times when you have writer's block, go and do something fun. I'm serious. Like go play pool, go shoot hoops, go for a walk, go play video games, do something fun for like a half hour, because doing something fun helps unlock and unblock creativity. Another tip I have for you, if you are writing a book, keep writing. Like absolutely keep writing. Don't go back and be like, oh wait, I need to fix this, I need to edit this. No. If you are in your very first draft is a rough draft. It's called a rough draft for a reason. It is going to be rough, it is going to be messy, it's going to have scratch marks and erase marks. It's meant to look like that. Just keep writing, because if you are trying to edit while you are also trying to write, your brain is trying to do two different sets of processes and it can't handle it, and you end up stalling your time. So keep writing. If it's a mess, that's okay. You can go back and fix it in the next draft. The other two things that I want to talk about very briefly is when you are writing, ask yourself, who is my who? If you've been in 100X, Pedro talks a lot about finding your who's your whoville. And with that, write out who your book is for. Who is your target audience? Because when you're writing, you want to write to them. You want them to feel like, yes, this book is for me. This is exactly what I need for this time right now. The last thing you need, we'll call this a North Star. So the North Star is why you write and what you want your reader to walk away with when they are engaging in your work. So if I'm writing a book about human trafficking, but I don't want people to feel like sad and depressed and down the dumps, like, oh no, human trafficking is so terrible, I'm just gonna hide in my room forever like a little turtle. Like if I want them to feel like, hey, I can do something about this, I am going to end every chapter or every section of my book with some type of encouragement, showing them like, hey, you are capable of educating yourself and doing something to help see human trafficking end in your city, in your community. With my book on mental health, I wanted people to walk away feeling hopeful. So every single chapter, no matter what I was talking about, if I was talking about anxiety, if I was talking about self-injury, like I wanted to make sure that whoever was reading that walked away with a sense of hope, that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that they could get through whatever it was that they were getting through. So when you're writing, ask yourself, what is your North Star? And how are you pointing your who back to that North Star every time? So yeah, again, I apologize. I realize I went over, but I love writing, and I love talking about writing, and I love equipping people to write. So much so that I have created a course for people to help write more. And the course is specifically geared towards people who are writing fiction novels. And I will have information on the next slide here for you to get plugged into that if that is something that you would like to get into. If you have any questions that you want to ask me, you can drop them in the chat, tag me in them so I can come back and answer them, or you can email them to me. My email address will be on the next slide as well as my website. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here and to partner with you in reclaiming the arts for God and His glory. Have a wonderful rest of the day.